Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome. It's awesome to have you guys here. Kai, this has been a topic of our passions, a love of ours, and a dedication, a mission, an obsession. Bringing to not just the coaching world, the therapeutic world, the consulting world, and just people that are wanting to live a deeper, more integrated life is how do we live our life more in resonance. So today's training really is at the core of how do we live a more beautiful life, a life that's in resonance, a life that we're stemming from our true self. And when we get connected to that place, it flows out of us into our business. It flows out of us into our career. It flows out into all of our relationships. So we are excited and we are privileged to be able to be sharing our wisdom and our accumulation of knowledge that we've gained through experimenting, testing, failing, succeeding, and we'd love to be able to share with you our take on what we believe is the most important discoveries when it comes to coaching from that deeper part of ourselves, that truer essence, that intuitive place within us. And we're going to touch today a little bit on what do we mean by when you're in resonance or in tune with life. We're going to be touching on what is required in order to allow that to flow out of us in our business and in our coaching skill set or our impact with our clients, as well as giving you guys an opportunity to ask any questions, any particular challenges, any specific problems that you feel like you would like some clarity or some assistance from Kai and myself on as well. So welcome, Heidi. Good to see you there as well. Kai, I might hand it over to you to kick things off, and I just want to welcome everyone watching the replay as well. It's an honor to have you guys here as well. And if there's any comments as we go through the class, feel free to drop the comments in the chat, not just for yourself, but for anyone else. So for anyone else who's on the call, sometimes you'll get insights and you'll have realizations that are significant for you. And when you share them in the thread, other people realize that at a deeper level. So I invite you to think of contributing not just to yourself, but also to everyone else in the class by sharing any of the insights or realizations that come up for you and playing full out. So I might just, before I hand over to you, Kai, I might just get everyone to just type in the chat, whereabouts are you coming to us from in the world? What city are you in? What country are you in? Just type in the chat, where are you in the world at the moment? Love to know, where are you guys all coming from? And I hope that wherever you are in the world, you are happy and healthy. And I hope you guys are excited about exploring this deeper essence of transformation, of coaching, and how to live a life in more resonance with us all here this morning. So we've got Alex in Perth. Hello, Alex. Yeah, I'm very, very familiar with Perth. I spent a decade of my life living in Perth. It's a beautiful city. We've got Jenny in Melbourne. I also love Melbourne. It's a beautiful place. I spent a lot of my life in Melbourne as well. We've got Tanvi in Toronto. Never been happier. I'm so glad, mate. I'm so glad for you. I can see that beautiful smile on your face as well. I can see the happiness just flowing out of you. It's beautiful. Okay. All right, Kai, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks, Chris. And welcome, everyone. It's really nice to have you guys here and to be able to create this space for us to explore. I have been just kind of reflecting upon what my life journey has been like and how I wound up here doing transformational coaching work and trainings. And I think I want to start there in terms of sharing some of the insights I had that led me to be sitting where I'm sitting. I'll give a little breakdown of how my life unfolded, just a small one, a summary. So the first major exploration I had in my life was music. And I started at the age of 3 with classical piano. And through that, I would say it wasn't a passion until I was maybe 14 or 15. You know, there was a lot of discipline involved. You had to practice every day. As a little kid, you just want to go out and play, but you sit there and you do it anyway. And I learned how to discipline myself into being great at stuff, you know, mastering something. And that skill has been really helpful because it doesn't take me long to pick things up. I can pick up anything that I use, that skill set that I developed on, I would call it a mastery skill set, how to master things. Um, and that's really been powerful for me. And also music has touched me in a very deep way. After I got done with classical piano, when I was probably about 19, I started writing my own music and did an album, and I got to express myself in a deeper way. So it became a form of communication, became a way that I could relate to the world. And that was really a beautiful exploration. After I finished high school, I went into massage therapy, and I was always interested in sports and the human body as well. So I took into the field of health and well-being. And for 5 or 6 years after I graduated, I started exploring different healing modalities, and really had a passion for how human beings operate, function, but then the deeper side of them. What are these things that are feelings, and how do we change beliefs and thoughts? And by the time I got through all the healing sessions that I did, which was over 5,000 by the time I was 5 years into my career and I wanted to transition out, I started coming up against another wall. You know, every time I go up against a wall in my understanding, I transition. I go into something else because I realized there's something preventing me from discovering what's next. And I was coming up against the wall in terms of clients would come in. I knew how to get them pain-free or results in terms of getting things to go away. But then sometimes they'd come back and those things would return. And I always asked myself, why? You know, why? Even at the deepest level of healing, which is integrative and energetic healing, why do things return? What's that about? And I had the insight that until a person changes the way that they are, their habits, their thoughts, their emotions, and their behaviors are going to create the disease, because that's what created it in the first place. So how do I help people on that level? How do I help people transform the way they are? Which will have an impact on the way they feel and think and the way that they behave. Because I realized unless I go to that level of causation, I'm doing a disservice at my level of understanding. Now, there's probably people who are really feeling fulfilled doing healing work and being able to get rid of symptoms. But for me, that I hit the wall and I had an insight. I just realized I can't keep doing this. So I literally stopped. I made a decision, and within 1 month, I said, I'm not doing healing anymore. And I jumped into this coaching thing. And from there, it's been, 5 to 6 years now, exploring consciousness and exploring spirituality and exploring what's behind the brain and behind the body and behind the emotions and behind the thoughts, and what's moving it all, what's causing it all to happen. So as I started getting into coaching, everything about my healing business model and my approach and my mindset changed. And, currently, for those of you that don't know, I live in Bali. I moved here 3 years ago from Canada, which is a nice place, but also a very cold place most of the year. So I've decided at one point, I'm going to live in a place that I would like to vacation at. That was one of the decisions I made. I'd rather just live in why would I have vacation there? Why don't I make a home out of a place that I want to live in, that I want to escape to from my life? So I made my life the place that I was previously hoping to escape into. And I chose where I live. Now, when I did that, I had a in-person healing business that I had to transition. It was coaching and healing at the time. And I had to make a decision to become location independent, meaning I had to create a business that was independent on where I was living at the time, and I could still operate. Luckily, I did that before COVID, because a lot of people were forced to do that because of COVID. I luckily followed my intuition and did it before COVID, and I was set up, and my business grew during COVID, because there are certain models of business that are going to grow in this kind of economy, and there are others that are going to fail. And sometimes, the desire to cling on to the old model and watch the ship sink, go down with the ship as the captain. That can be a noble act, but it's not very intelligent. So we need to be able to transition at any moment. We need to be able to pivot. We need to be able to go with the trend and stay ahead of it to be successful. That's one thing that they don't teach. Everyone's teaching strategies and everyone's teaching this and that, but you have to know how to pivot. You have to understand how to pivot, because if things aren't working, you got to pivot. So that's just something I intuitively know to do, and that's been keeping my business evolving. But one thing that I realized about coaching is it's not just a profession. It's not just a means of transaction. It's not just a money. It's not just something that makes money, because that's how people look at business. It's a way to generate income. For me, coaching has become a lifestyle. And what I mean by that is at a certain point, my discovery of who I really am, which some people call spirituality, that became the core focus of my life. And when I got into that, I went, deep on the deep end. I go into the deep end on everything I do. I went into different yogic practices and spent some time in India, and I was doing like 5 hours of meditation in the morning, and I was like in the deep end. And at some point, I didn't even care to be working. I was so fulfilled just sitting in meditation that I was like, what am I going to get from working anyway? I mean, it's just like, I'm already feeling wonderful. And at some point that turned into kind of the extension of giving that feeling away. And that changed how I did business. I realized that the only thing that we really have to give is what we've experienced. And that's either through the transmission of the beautiful feeling that we're in, which I call passion. Like, how passionate are you to be alive? Not what is your passion in terms of what is your interest? Oh, right now I like cars, and right now, tomorrow I'm gonna like puppies, and the next day I'm gonna like, your passion, your interests change. The object of your passion changes, but I'm talking about passion as the source of life. I'm not referring to it as the thing that you're fixated on. I'm referring it to, do you feel alive every moment? Are you passionate about being alive? Because that's something that you have to come to a place where you enjoy life enough to want to be involved in life. And once you're involved in life, you become good at life. And once you become good at life, you become skilled. And once you become skilled, you find purpose. So it comes from knowing self. It comes from tapping into being alive. That passion bubbles up inside of you. It's a way of being, not something that you fixate on externally. It's who you become. And your enthusiasm for life starts to trickle out into everything that you do. And if you become good at the things you do, then you have a certain value. You can be in service. And that's when you will discover purpose. You'll find what your purpose is, and you'll eventually live your purpose. And it'll change, because purpose is, again, dependent on the situation, oftentimes. How your purpose finds expression. Let's say 200 years ago, before the internet, before technology, before all of this, how you found expression in your life purpose would have been different. So again, I want to make the distinction. Purpose is not about the vehicle in which you're serving life. It's not that purpose is, I'm going to be a coach and that's my purpose, and I'm going to be a healer and that's my purpose. No, it's that you are living so passionately, that you're involved so much in life, that you discover the nature of it, and you discover what it is to be alive, and you're transmitting that in whichever way you can to raise the quality of life on this planet, which some people call raising consciousness, some people call being in service. Give it whatever word you want. I think it all comes from having discovered how to live life. from yourself. So that's where I realized coaching is actually a lifestyle. And all I have to give is my good feeling and my wisdom, what I've personally learned about life, not what I think life is about, not what some book I read says life's about, some theory, some philosophy, but what I personally have experienced in my life that works. You don't want to be a coach if that's what you choose to be. You don't want to be teaching philosophies that don't work. And you definitely don't want to be sharing experiences that you failed at. You want to be transmitting your success. And, in a way, that's all we can do. There's many sayings, you can only take someone as far as you've gone yourself. I mean, in terms of how rich someone is, someone who's not rich can draw out that intelligence in someone else. But in terms of how life works, in terms of the quality of life that you live, independent of what's outside of you, independent of your circumstance, yeah, you can't take anyone further than you've gone. Because the limitation in how far you can take someone is the limitation in your level of consciousness. So for me, that's what coaching's about. It's about expanding my own level of consciousness, discovering deeper who I am at the spiritual level, and transmitting everything that I am to the people that sit in front of me to improve the quality of their life, independent of circumstance. Yes, we want to improve circumstance too, but we want to get to a point like I got to where it didn't matter what my circumstance was. I could be happy. I had the skill to be happy within myself. That's the only skill that you need to make a difference in most people's lives. Figure that one out. You're going to make a difference in everyone's life, because not a lot of people have that. They don't have that down. So in essence, what this lifestyle gives me is I get to live where I want to live. And at any point in time, if I choose, I could move. I'm not limited by my business. So my business isn't the limitation, it's the possibility. I have freedom. I'm in service to the degree that I have a certain level of financial freedom. I'm not at the point where I could stop working for 10 years and spend $100,000 to $1 million a year. I'm not at that level of wealth that I could have that kind of financial freedom. But the financial freedom that I have is that I can work 2 to 3 hours a day and spend lots of time with my son and my family and live in a nice house and have the things that I need and provide for them and not struggle. So financial freedom in my current level of understanding is that, but everyone has a different one. Some people, it's just paying the rent. That would be financial freedom, not needing to struggle to pay the rent. Some people, it's having 10 million in the bank because they have 5. And, it's like you make up whatever those parameters are, but there's a feeling that I'm not struggling to live my life. That's for me what financial freedom, kind of the essence of it is. It's that I'm not struggling to make a living. It's flowing. It's easy. I don't have to work at it, right? So that is the essence of that. And then I have creative freedom. I can literally come here and talk about whatever I want to today from my own experience. And I get to explore that with you guys in a way that's going to make a difference. So I get to share what I'm passionate about. I get to share what I've learned about life. And I get to explore even further in doing that. So my life is integrated. I don't have a work life. I just live and I make a difference and I make my life better, and that makes my clients' lives better, and et cetera, et cetera. And that's how I think everyone has that possibility to create that level of ease and freedom in their life. And that's what I've decided in this moment is what's important to me, is to help people do that. There's different ways that I do that: one-to-one coaching, group coach trainings, all this stuff. But that's the essence of what I want to give, because that's what's been valuable to me. And each of you guys have something that's valuable to you. And I would love to hear actually from you guys, kind of what is the core essence of what you would like to give, not necessarily specific to the detail of how you give it, but what is it that, what's the essence of what you want to give to the world? What is it that you have done for your life that's been given you a beautiful vantage point to be able to say, hey, I'm living beautifully in this area of my life. I want to give that away. Just type in the chat something that comes to mind, anything. It could be that I laugh when other people don't laugh. I don't want to give away humor. Or it could be I'm really curious. I don't let myself get like bogged down. I feel like a child with my curiosity. I want to share that with the world in education, right? I've got myself to a place where I feel really vibrant and healthy and alive. I want to give that away, as a physical therapist or a healer or a trainer. Like, you see how there's the essence of what you want to give, and then there's the application of how you do it. I want to hear the essence. Heidi, I would love to help people heal from chronic diseases using nothing outside of them. Beautiful. So in essence, that would just mean I want people to have a vibrant health. I'd love them to experience the vibrancy of health that I'm experiencing. Yeah. That's the outcome, right? That through the process of them healing, they'll discover that vibrancy of life that you're living. So I really want to transmit this vibrancy of life. That's the essence. How I do that is as a healer, helping people heal from chronic ailment. Right? So that's the application, is healing through chronic ailment, but the essence is the vibration of the vibrancy of health. Jenny, open-minded, curiosity, love, beautiful. Beautiful. And again, you can do that through sharing that with children, in education, right? Because what does a child need? They don't need to be taught certain theories and philosophies. They need to be taught how to not diminish their curiosity, how to not stifle their intelligence, because they'll naturally discover what they need to in their life, how to stay open-minded. So beautiful. That's the real skill that they need. Alex, I feel like I'm making people's life better, make them feel they matter and they belong. Yeah, that's an important one. How many of you at some point felt like you didn't belong? Throw up your hand if that applies to you. Or you may still not feel like you belong. You may still not feel like I still don't know where I'm supposed to be in this world, in this thing we call life. What if you could help people feel like they belong? Feel the connection. It's a huge service. It's a huge service. And she said, and also maybe curiosity and real deep care. Yeah. Feeling like they were deeply cared for. Yeah, that's beautiful. You know, when you sit with someone and they don't have an agenda and they sit with you and you really feel like, wow, this person wants to know about me and they care about me. That's really valuable. Tamara, supporting people with overcoming mental health addictions, tapping into their childlike wonder. Yeah, I can see that. You absolutely embody, from what I see, a childlike wonder. I get that from you. A receptivity, for sure. So call it coaching. But what are you really giving? You're giving what you embody. And coaching is just a model. It's just a method to help draw out the best in people. Coaching is actually a leadership tool. Do you know where coaching originated? There were teachers of tennis. This might be interesting for those of you that don't know. The distinction of coaching, the creation of coaching. There was a tennis player who was looking for a coach. At that time, a coach was a person who taught you stuff. Now, this person was trying to get this player to enhance their game. And at one point, he started asking questions instead of showing him what to do. He started saying, hey, what does it feel like when you nail your forehand? What's that feel like? And the guy started reflecting upon it. He gave him the answer, and he said, and and he started asking him, instead of telling him, he started getting him to reflect on what he was doing. And within a very short period of time, the person got better. And then he started trying this on people who weren't tennis players. And he started doing the same method with people who just wanted to learn tennis from a basic level, not pros, not even amateurs. And he started realizing that their learning curve was so fast. It was faster than previously. Then he taught some people who weren't tennis coaches what he was doing. And he got them to work with tennis players. And they were able to get the same results of an enhanced performance. And the distinction of coaching was discovered, which is that if you get someone to reflect and they have insight from within, they will enhance whatever it is that they're doing. And you don't even need to be an expert in what they're doing to be able to use that methodology of self-inquiry. But you can make a difference in people's lives just understanding how to hold the right space. So, there's lots of coaching for performance or for leadership or for this or that. And the coaching that I love to do is transformational, and it's coaching to help someone realize who they really are. Because I know if someone discovers that, which is the fundamental truth of life, then every area of their life will improve. I'm not just worried about a skill set like getting better at playing tennis. I want their essence to evolve. The essence of who they are, I want that to evolve. Then everything they do will improve. So, this is kind of the core philosophy and how I look at helping people. And I'm privileged to be able to sit down and have conversations with people that lead to them feeling better in their life, independent of circumstance. And then also circumstances do change. People do also get results too. But I know that the most important thing I could give them is what I discovered in my meditation, which is independent of the world, a happiness independent of what you do, an enthusiasm, a passion for life independent of having a hobby or having a profession or having something that you specifically focus on, just being passionate about being alive. And that's what I have to give. And I think each of you have something really special to give. And I want to strip away all the external stuff that's not necessary. And yeah, that's all I have to say for now. Do you guys have any questions before I hand it over to Chris? Any comments, any insights you want to share? Yeah, Jenny just said, really resonates with me. Thank you. Yeah, beautiful. And I love that word resonates. To me, it's become such a strong word in my vocabulary lately, because beyond logic, beyond preference, beyond shared interests, you can resonate with someone at such a deep level that you feel like you've known them for a long time. And that word resonance to me means the aspect of me that is universal is vibrating in the same way that the aspect of you, which is universal, is vibrating. And that's what resonance means. It's connection at the soul level, connection at the spiritual level. And if you can get into that kind of a connection with someone, a lot of the limitations go away, a lot of the personal differences go away, and you can just be in the presence of someone that you enjoy. And from there, that is the foundation of a relationship that's collaborative and beneficial. And that's the basis of helping someone. Alex, great share, Kai. Thanks. Great insights about what we have naturally to add. Yeah. Yeah, because a lot of people get caught up in like the skill set. Like, oh, I got to get better at coaching. I got to get better at this. But you can only educate yourself so much. Sometimes you can overeducate yourself. Because let's be honest, there's a lot of people teaching stuff that just didn't work for their life. I can write a book about all the nonsense that I think that has no relevance on how life works. I can do that. Anyone can do that. What you want to share is the facts about life. You want to share the universal truths that you've discovered. And sometimes it's hard to decipher the difference. You could write an entire encyclopedia series on one fact, one spiritual fact. But you wouldn't need to, because you could say it in 5 words. That's the beauty of truth, is it's so simple. It doesn't need complex theories and philosophies. And guess what most of the books out there are? Philosophical. Musings of the mind. They're not relevant to truth. So when you come back to what's true, what's true for me and what's true for what I have to give, that's where you're going to make the biggest difference. That's where you can that's the only place you can make a difference from. To be honest, let's be real. You can throw out all the gunk you've collected from those books over the years, if you can just tap into one spiritual fact and give that away. Cool. I think that's all I have to share for now. Hey, Purnima, welcome. Nice to have you here. Chris, maybe I'll hand it over to you if you have.
Yeah.
You want to explore.
Yeah, thanks, Kai. Yeah, I'd like to take over from where you left off, Kai, around talking about sharing what we believe to be true. And when we tap into, or this for me personally, since I've really understood the difference between subjective truth versus universal truths, now that I know what's universally true, the place that I coach from is this deep inner knowing that allows me to see beyond my clients' limitations. I don't buy into their belief systems. I can hold space with absolute compassion and connection, but I know, doesn't matter what content they're sharing with me, I know the divinity of their being. I'm able to connect soul to soul. And so I'm addressing my clients in the same way as I'm addressing all of you right now as souls. I'm addressing you as pure consciousness. So the context for the conversation that I'm now having in my coaching career is it's God speaking with God. It's the universe speaking with the universe. It's life speaking with life. So the way that I experience my clients now is it's not just a conversation. It's a divine experience. Every single one of them, which is now so much of a beautiful experience. For those of you that don't know, I used to be I still am a trainer of NLP and hypnosis, timeline therapy, which are, for those of you that don't know, there are a series of techniques, essentially. The world's best therapists back in the 70s were modeled, and they took the techniques that people were using that were being successful, and they deconstructed them and created a manual. And they said, great, if someone has a phobia, use this technique. If someone has a lack of motivation, use this technique. And so I was trained in the early stages of my coaching journey as the technique guy. I became the technique guy. I used to be an engineer, so very, very logical, very strong in my left brain. And so that really appealed to me. Oh, great, my client's coming with this. So I look up their problem in the chart and I go, oh, great, that's what I need to do. And it was great for a while. But eventually, as Kai said, I hit the wall. Eventually, clients would be coming to me with problems that I couldn't solve, that there was no technique for. And so what do you do when there's no technique, right? And what I since learned was the techniques are just simply a strategy. They're just a tool. They're not the science behind why something works. It's just a deconstruction of why something works. So what I started to realize was when I realized the deeper universal truths of who we really are at our core, which are universal truths like what we really are pure consciousness or souls or whatever language you want to use around that. There's this conscious energy that we find ourselves experiencing life through that makes us unique. So, for example, you have Jenny, you have consciousness, which makes you feel like you don't have the experience of Chris, right? And I don't have the experience of being you. So there's something unique about my consciousness and your consciousness that makes us, that gives us this unique experience. So when I started to realize that there are these universal truths that are constant, they're the same for everyone. I started to move beyond techniques, and I started to get to this universal wisdom that was flowing through me, where I no longer needed any techniques anymore, because I just saw what was the root cause of my client's problem. I moved beyond feeling like I needed to memorize things, and now just intuitively I'm sensing that's just not true. That what my client's telling me, it doesn't have any truth, because I know what's true. Like my client's telling me that they're not worthy, or that they don't love themselves, or that they're not good enough, and it's like, hang on, I know that the fundamental nature of consciousness is peace and love. So I know that what they're telling me is not accurate. So I don't need a technique now to refer to, because I'm standing on a foundation of truth. And so when I'm speaking from that place of truth, I'm not in my head. I'm not trying to work out what's the next thing I've got to say. I'm just present, and I don't even know what the next thing that's going to come out of my mouth is. But what I do know is that there's some kind of divine intelligence that's flowing through me and my client. And when I connect to that, and when my client becomes receptive to that, all sorts of magical, transformative impact happens that is beyond what I can even describe, or, I can't even, sometimes I have the most amazing conversations where my clients have this moment of epiphany and their kind of eyes wobble and they have this aha moment and something shifts. Now, I don't even necessarily know what it was. They don't even necessarily know what it is, but something changes. Have you guys ever had that? You guys have ever had like an epiphany where something just hits you and you've seen something new for the first time? That is true transformation, where there's a fresh, new perceptual reality that emerges where you think, oh, wow, how did I not see that? That transformative power that you've experienced, we call that. It's a sight from within. The only place that can be seen for a client or for us is within our unconsciousness. So you can try and give away all the strategies and the advice in the world, but unless your client sees it and is experiencing it and feels it for themselves, none of it is going to make any difference, because it's just going to be an extra concept for them to memorize and write down in their book to try and remember. But it's not a real thing. It's not real wisdom. It's intellectual thinking. In some cases, it can be a burden because it's extra thinking on top of, oh, now I've got to remember this strategy. Now I've got to remember this strategy. Whereas when wisdom becomes integrated, you don't need to remember it because it's part of you. It now is automatic. It's now just the way that life makes sense. So I moved from this world of techniques of trying to feel like every problem had one technique that I needed to use into this world of, I now trust this soul to soul connection that's going on in the conversation. I now trust the power of my client to see truth themselves, because I know that every single one of my clients has the power to have that insight, that epiphany. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking to help my clients see beyond the illusion. I'm looking to help them see their true self, get them connected with their true self, get them to see that they are not their experience. They are the consciousness that's allowing them to have the experience. And I'll do a little exercise with you now to make this point. Right now, you're looking at the screen. Now, if you've got it on gallery view, like I do, you'll see there's lots of little boxes here. on the screen. You can see there's lots of there's people on the call here, and you can see that I'm looking at a screen, lots of boxes. Now, right now, you might be caught up with looking in the screen, and it might look like you're looking into my living room. It might look like you can look into Jenny's living room and Alexandra's living room and Heidi's living room. It's like you're literally transported into these little boxes. Now, if you allow yourself to bring back your awareness a little bit, you'll see that there is no boxes that are separated. There are just pixels on a screen. So there is no distance between my face and the back of my wall. It's flat. It's pixels on a screen. Now, so what we've just done is we've just gone one level back into what's more true, which is you're not looking into my room, you're looking at pixels. Are you guys with me so far? Great. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go another level back. We're going to go a level back, which is now you're not actually experiencing pixels on a screen. You're experiencing the light particles that are hitting your retina in your eye, which is now stitching together an approximation of reality that's happening somewhere in your mind, and that's now happening in consciousness. So now consciousness is allowing you to perceive pixels on a screen, which sometimes gives the apparent illusion of little boxes or looking into the living room. And when we go back and back and back to pure consciousness, what we've just done is we've recovered what is actually really true, which is the thing that's powering our experience, which is consciousness. That's constant. There's just this constant, ever-present intelligence that is always perceiving, that is allowing us to have the experience. And then, yes, we use the power of thought and information to go deeper and deeper and deeper into the illusion. And what we're doing as a coach or as a transformational coach is we're taking people out of the little boxes of their lives back into the consciousness of their pure, true self. Now, as soon as someone reminds themselves, or as soon as someone catches a glimpse of their own true nature, it doesn't matter what was the chaos going on in their little boxes on the screen. They remember, I'm safe. I know who I am. I am the creator of the pixels on the screen. I am the perceiver of that. I am not the pixels on the screen. I am not the boxes. I am not the chaos going inside the rooms. I am the witnesser. I am the watcher. I am at a very, very safe space watching this whole show unfold. And there's peace in that space. There is a deep knowing of our own divine nature when someone comes back to that level of consciousness. So that now is what I'm unconsciously and consciously helping my clients experience, so that we're now not trying to put out the spot fires on the little screens of their mind. We're going backwards a level, going bigger picture. We're going back to a universal truth. It just allows a lot of the beliefs, a lot of the fears, a lot of the illusions to just fall by the wayside without even needing to specifically address them. So I just wanted to check in. I can see there's some nods. I can see there's some smiles. I can see there might be some things that might be resonating. So I'd just love to check in and just find out from you if that resonates with you. And if so, how does that resonate with you? Does that seem true? And if you don't agree with it, let me know. You don't have to agree with me, but what I'm pointing to here is something that I believe that everyone can see. It's not complex. I'm not trying to convince you of something that's a belief. What I'm pointing to here is the true nature of our consciousness, which is constant. It's universal. It's something that we all share, and we're all connected. I like to use the metaphor of we're actually all droplets of the ocean of consciousness. That's what we're all connected to. So there's this divine intelligence that's flowing through each droplet that we all find ourselves in this collective ocean of oneness or beingness. So that is now what I feel like I'm connecting to when I'm in a coaching conversation, as opposed to referring to my manual or trying to remember that Tony Robbins quote. So I'm now in a state of presence, and I'm in a state of just pure beingness with my client. And sometimes I have no idea what I'm going to share with my client, no idea what I'm going to ask them. Sometimes I have no idea. In fact, I suggest that's probably the best place to stem from when we're coaching a client, is to suspend any of my previous beliefs, suspend any of my ideas about what I think is going on for them. And as Kai was saying before, with the example of the tennis coach, my job is to get into their consciousness. So my job is to go, it's like I'm literally going into their consciousness, and I'm wanting to see their world exactly as they see it, so that I can now work with them. Because for me, just to tell them what I think, that's just going to be trying to shove something in their throat, trying to get them to believe something. The best way to get your client to believe something is not to try and convince them of it. It's to get them to experience it for themselves. And I'll finish up with another little metaphor that I think is probably the powerful description of how I've now found is the best way to coach, which is, if I'm wanting a client to see truth, the only way that they're going to see that truth is from within their consciousness. That's where it's taking place. It's got nothing to do with what's going on inside my consciousness. Whilst, yes, when I'm in a state of connection with my client, that's going to increase the receptivity of their consciousness to see the truth. But me telling them something is not the same as them seeing it. Why do you think two people can read the same book, and one person says, "Oh, that book's shit, I got nothing from it," and someone else says, "Oh my God, that book transformed my life"? What do you make of that? The same words, but different impact. It's because someone saw something deeper. They saw a deeper truth that the other person didn't see. And for me, it comes down to a lot of different things, but receptivity is the most important thing. Getting your client to a state of receptivity where they feel so safe, they feel so connected. They now become, it's like you just open the doorway to wisdom to flow into their consciousness. And so that's now the art of creating receptivity and connection. Now that for me that's the most important part of my conversation. I know if I'm creating connection and receptivity with my client, I can get out of the way. It's like I have less of a role to play, because when they're connected, their wisdom is already present within them. They already have enough curiosity, wisdom, have enough divine intelligence going on inside of them. I've just got to remind them of that. And so it's the same thing as if you were trying to describe to a person that's never seen a sunset before. Try and describe a sunset to someone that's never seen it. You might be the best poet, the most articulate person with the best grammar, with the best vocabulary. You'll only get so far trying to describe that as a concept to someone. But as soon as you point to a sunset and someone sees it, job done. They have done the heavy lifting from them using their consciousness and them realizing it for themselves. So I realized in this journey of coaching, I actually get to do less and less, because I'm allowing my client's consciousness, which is incredibly intelligent, like it's powerfully intelligent, like more intelligent than my conscious mind. It's vastly superior and vastly more intelligent than any of the ideas that I could ever come up with. So I'm leveraging the intelligence and the consciousness of my client, and I trust their consciousness to be able to have every epiphany, every realization, every discovery that's available, because consciousness, its very nature it's seeking truth. That's what consciousness is. Consciousness is the capacity to be aware of truth. And so when we leverage that, no techniques required, no memorizing quotes, is less and less for the coach to do. So anyway, I just wanted to elaborate a little bit more on what I've learned in that whole process, because it shifted the game for me. Instead of me now being worried about my clients getting results and worrying about how am I going to coach them, I'm so relaxed because I know that they're already whole and complete. They're the ones that are going to do the heavy lifting. They're the ones that are doing the transforming. And when they connect to that, there's a super highway of divine intelligence that's going to come flowing through their awareness that I can't predict or control. So it becomes less about me and it's more about tapping into and leveraging what's already in existence, which is the true universal principles of, as Kai and I now teach in our 3 principles training, mind, consciousness, and thought. These are the 3 ingredients of all psychological experience, which we are now leveraging. So the coaching becomes really, really simple. There's 3 scientific, psycho-spiritual principles that we're leveraging that's going to do all the heavy lifting. So it's a world beyond techniques. It's a world beyond memorizing things. It's a world beyond the intellect. It's a connected soul to soul experience that now is far more transformative and far more beautiful than I even realized or dreamed was possible. When I was sitting in my first 5 days of my NLP training, I was thinking, oh, this is so great. I've got all these techniques. I know what to do. And now I've dumped all of them and I've got a vastly more powerful toolkit by letting go of the techniques, because I realized every technique is eventually going to limit you. It has its limit. So we're moving into this limitless, more expansive space of pure consciousness. So that's all that I'll share, and I'll hand it back over to you, Kai. We've got a couple of comments here that I'll read through. Alex says, "I love the state of presence. I'm coaching from that space. I'm coaching from that place from the time I had a massive insight from Sid Banks and you coaching session in your program." Thank you very much. I'm glad that stayed with you. That's beautiful. I feel like we are the one where I'm with my clients or other people. No judgment, just seeing and listening beyond everything. That's so beautiful, Alex. I'm so glad that you've got that deeper presence in the coaching conversation, because that I wish coach. I wish I had that when I first began, because it would make the coaching journey so much more fun and enjoyable, and not to mention powerful and transformative. So I'm really, really glad that that's really stuck for you. Well done. Well done. Jenny, nice one. I'm glad you found that empowering. Yeah, we don't need to be fixed. We just need to be connected to our soul. Absolutely. That's the game right there. Addressing your clients as another soul that's already whole and complete. That is going to, that in and of itself is sometimes all that's needed to remind someone of they are not the boxes on the screen. They are the watcher of the boxes on the screen. So when someone really gets that, game changer. And that's what I've now, I don't live from that place 100% of the time, but most of my day, I'm waking myself up out of the boxes to the fact that I'm the watcher of the boxes. And I'm like, that in itself is a game changer for clients. When you get one insight of their own true being, a lifetime of suffering belief systems can just get completely deleted, washed away, made redundant. And it's one of the most powerful things that I've discovered on my coaching journey. So, and beautiful, Alex. The feeling, tears, I cry tears of joy all the time. Just, the tears are a beautiful outflowing of whatever energy is there to be experienced. So beautiful. I can see your transformation. I can see how far you've come, and it's so beautiful to see that. I can see. I mean, I know there's a lot of you on the call here that have been through our trainings before, and the transformation you've all experienced is just so beautiful. And there's nothing more fulfilling or beautifully inspiring than to see some other soul discover their true self, to be able to radiate their true essence as well. That's what I'm here to do, is to help people discover that for themselves. And that's why we do what we do. So anyway, that's it from me, Kai. I'll hand it back over to you.
Yeah, wonderful share, Chris. And thank you guys for sharing as well, who are watching. I guess maybe we'll leave it open for questions. If you guys have questions or things you want to explore, things you have unanswered, could be related to coaching, could be related to personal life. But we'll do a little bit of question in terms of kind of, I guess the other thing that I want to touch upon is the system that we're working with, because we can go into that if there's no questions. But if you guys have questions, we'll start there. And then I would like to leave some time to talk about the system, which we call the resonance-based coaching system, and tell you what that's about and where it comes from and how it came to be and what that entails. So you guys have any personal questions, anything that needs to get answered before moving forward? Alex, so many. Fire one off.
Can I come in? Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you for doing this. It's always awesome to connect. And I probably have questions because after your course, I started to connecting with people, and always what happened with my clients, like they kind of quickly cry and release, and it's, I'm still going back to techniques. It's like, oh, what questions I should ask, and that's something that I'm trying to avoid because it's naturally better when you just connected with clients. But is there any, I guess, is there any technique or anything that that you need to hold a space, but how to move them away to feel great? Is that just going back to thoughts and explain them that it's just their thinking it causing that, or is there anything we can help them to go faster, out of that shame or guilt or anything they experience?
Yeah. So that's great that you're able to, create a space where people feel safe to express that with you first off. And normally those are just the expressions of a deeper insight coming into their awareness. You know, when we feel so connected to someone else or ourselves, when we feel like we belong, like you said, oftentimes there's a lot of protection that we built up over the years that keeps us protected from connection. And when someone really connects to you, you feel like almost like you don't have to wear those protection mechanisms anymore. And that's a lot of pressure that builds up over the years that just releases. So it's more of a consequence um, of being connected and being in a truly connected state. But it's not relevant in terms of needing to stay there and explore for too long the feeling or this or that, because it's not necessarily to do the therapy on the feeling. The insight releases it anyway. So the insight actually is what heals, because disease is actually misperception of life at the deepest level. That's what keeps emotions trapped, which is what affects the nervous system, which is what creates a breakdown in communication from the brain to the body, which is what creates disease. So it can all come back to how you misperceive life. You can get healing on all levels at that level. And the most important thing is, helping people realize a better feeling. They stayed in that feeling for long enough. So helping them find a better feeling to live from. And often those moments of vulnerability are great moments for education. Education not meaning teaching someone a concept, but drawing out deeper wisdom. So that's a good time where, sharing what we shared with you guys, how to coach them into insight, helping them understand where feelings come from, helping them understand who they really are at a deeper level. Those are opportunities when they come into those places of connection. Yeah, you'll notice it's just like a heart-to-heart conversation. And that's when sharing wisdom really is effective. Share your insights in that moment. It can be really effective in a heart-to-heart conversation. Hope that's helpful. Great. Any more questions before we move forward? If any come up, just let us know, okay? Type in the chat if anything comes up for you guys. So I think I'd love to share a little bit about kind of the system that's been developing and evolving. How we look at coaching, I'll speak for myself and then Chris can speak for himself, but how we kind of see things is quite eye to eye usually. When you're trying to make a difference in someone's life at the level of psychology, which is what all counseling, coaching, consulting, and therapy is you're trying to make a difference at the level of thought. So therapeutic work is literally memory work. If you really think about what you do in a therapeutic session with a therapist, you're exploring your memory. A lot of it is analyzing the memory, recalling the memory, revisiting the memory, reliving the memory. All the techniques are based around that. And when they work is when a person has an insight. And some, unfortunately, take people through a process that is more destructive than good. The longer that you revisit those thoughts that are causing the negative feelings, the more you reiterate their validity, the more sometimes you, I've spoken with people, I've coached people who've done lots of therapy, and therapy messed them up. It made them solidify that they had a problem more than they actually have. So I had to undo the fact that they now believed how problematic they were because of the horrible childhood that they went through and da-da-da. You know, not everyone's affected by a horrible childhood. Some people turn out great. It's not the environment that determines who you are as a person. It's who you are as a person that often influences the environment. So that's the fundamental flaw with therapeutic philosophy, is that by revisiting the situations, you're going to find clarity on who you are. It doesn't work like that. If you speak to who you are, you'll find clarity on the situation. So in that sense, you know, we can make a difference by approaching things differently. And the way that we look at approaching all healing, all therapy, all consulting, all coaching is at the level of changing a person's mind, changing the level of consciousness, raising the level of consciousness, which is going to change the kinds of thoughts that people think on a daily basis. And the kinds of thoughts people think on a daily basis creates the kind of experience that they live in. You're living in the world of your thinking right now. Yeah, Jenny said, working in the mental health world was so challenging because of the lack of soul. Yeah. And that's what we're doing. You know, we're bringing this understanding, which is a spiritual understanding, into the world of mental health. And it is creating real mental health because it's exploring what mental health is, not exploring what dysfunction is. Therapy is exploring dysfunction. Principle is exploring mental health. And that's the difference. You can't find mental health by exploring dysfunction. Just like you can't find the forest going diving in the ocean. Just in the wrong place. You're in the wrong environment to find what you're looking for. So in that sense, what we're doing is we are coming from a principled understanding of how human beings psychologically work. And in that understanding, which is, you know, we call the principles of the principles paradigm, we have specific models that we share with people in terms of how to coach, like what Chris was saying about, you know, just getting into that connection with someone and coming from presence and knowing when to share an insight. That in and of itself, just understanding those three simple things, will replace any technique. Because that's what really works. That's what occurs when a technique works. The technique is an attempt to trigger that phenomenon. We're talking about the science and the phenomenon independent of the technique. A technique means copying what someone does. That's what a technique is, replicating what someone did. We're talking about presence, meaning using your own intelligence in the moment to know what to do and to know how to be. So it's more presence-based. If you establish a certain way of being, you'll create an impact on whoever it is that you come in contact with. It's not a technique that you need to learn. It's a dimension of presence that you learn to embody. And we're not opposed to doing mentoring when needed, like giving step-by-step guidance on a journey that we've walked that is necessary to give for someone. We're not opposed to consulting someone in the sense of we have expertise in a certain area of life that person needs. We're not opposed to giving them the information that will be relevant to them. We're not opposed to training someone when we need to train them and help them develop a skill set. So it's not just about coaching. It's about how to empower and enhance the human being. You use whatever it is that you need to use in the moment. Your actions are not dependent on what you think is best. It's dependent on what's needed with the person in the moment. So in that way, it's a blend, not just coaching, but it's understanding how you can also do therapy from that principles-based understanding, without needing to explore your deepest, darkest secrets and the time when this person did this horrible thing to you. And let's go into detail. Let's relive it. Let's recount it. Let's revisit. Let's help me understand and live your worst, deepest, most fearful moment of trauma. And let's stay there for an hour. And let's not find any resolution, and I'll have you walk out of the room in that state. Take that into your day, please. That'll be $120, by the way. I'll see you next week. So, and I'm not discrediting and I'm not knocking therapy, because it's greatly effective when needed. But when it's needed is probably 5% of the time. And something else is needed 95% of the time. So in that sense, the paradigm that supports the understanding of how the human psyche really works, that's called principle. And William James, the father of modern psychology, he wrote a book in the 1800s, the late 1800s. And it was called Principles of Psychology. And I can't remember if it was an interview or someone who was reviewing his work, but he said, he was asked the question, it's interesting, you talk about principles of psychology, but there are no principles in your book. And he said, that's true. He says, the whole field of psychology is theoretical, conceptual. We don't know principles of psychology yet. There are none that have been discovered. So it's not really a science. Until something has principles, it's not considered a science. Until physics had principles that Isaac Newton discovered, it wasn't science. And so the whole field of psychology for a century has been built on theory of how the mind works. But in the 1970s, Sydney Banks, an uneducated welder, had a very profound spiritual insight where he discovered principles of psychology. And so there are two divergent paths of psychology in the world now, one that's based on principle and one that's not. And I would rather work from a place based on principle, based on consistent, relevant, universal truths that apply to every human being, instead of working from philosophies and concepts, because there's over 400 distinct kinds of psychology with various belief systems and therapeutic techniques. And the truth is there's one cure to all human mental disease. And these principles are the answer. So I feel very blessed to have this discovery, and it's still not mainstream. But what we've done is we've taken those principles and we built coaching models on top of that and created an environment for people to explore all of that, to enhance their own life first, then to learn the skill set of showing up in that level, in that way of being present with someone that's impactful, and then developing that skill set to the point that they feel there's enough value that they can charge and then understanding the skill set of enrollment from that heart-centered place, not from a selling place, but from a service-based place. And that system is what we call the resonance coaching system. It's an entire system of how to integrate your spiritual process into your professional life. You want to call yourself a coach, great. Call yourself a therapist, great. Call yourself a consultant, great. It applies to all fields. It's not limited to. Chris, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's probably just worth adding to that, that there is what we've managed to discover and synthesize is taking these universal principles, and we've created an ecosystem of models that guide you through a system of understanding. And so at each phase in the coaching journey, there are certain problems that come up. So for example, when you first start on the coaching path or the personal development path, we come up against a whole lot of limitations, fears, limiting beliefs, just misunderstandings of life. And so if we don't have a rock solid understanding of our own true nature and our own true essence, then if we then carry forward a lot of those misunderstandings, then our coaching is going to be compromised. One of my mentors, Keith Blevins, was once telling me about this phenomenon called the coach's error. And the coach's error is where we're trying to coach from an experience or a belief that we've had that's not a universal truth. And so we're now compromised in what we're hearing from our client because we're hearing they might have the same limiting belief as us. And so we don't pick up on it. Whereas when we're coaching from principles, we don't assume anything is true. we're literally in a space of just openness, of just, we're going to get them to curiously question everything, but we're standing on a deeper place of truth. So that's what the principles give us, is it gives us a deeper foundation for avoiding the coach's error. So that's one of the most powerful things that I've since discovered. And then following on from that, we then have the development. We'll go through our personal transformation. So I guess, Kai, these are the three dimensions that we're really moving coaches through. The first dimension is the personal transformation. So it is the deep realization of our own true essence and moving beyond the core limiting beliefs, the core misunderstandings that humans have. So that's the first phase. If we don't move beyond our own personal transformation, everything we do professionally, in our relationships, in our financial life, it's going to be compromised. So by getting that first personal transformation phase under our belt and deepening our understanding of life through principles, our personal transformation is something that now starts to accelerate, because those insights now come even faster and faster, because we're able to take ourselves out of the little boxes of the screen back to our true self more of the time, and it becomes even more and more, becomes even deeper. So that's the first dimension. The second dimension is our interpersonal transformation. So that's where we're able to transform someone else through our skill set, through our transmission. So one then leads to two. We've now got something to give away. We've now got truth that we can share. And then the third dimension that now becomes available is our commercial transformation, which is our understanding of business. So unless we've gone through 1, 2, and then 3, the business success is going to be compromised because we haven't developed the skill set. The skill set is going to be compromised because we're not giving away the highest level of wisdom. So there is a sequence to this process, but it also goes in a cycle. So it also goes in a spiral. So it goes in a spiral in the sense of there's every single different dimension of your life to master: finances, health, relationships, business, etc. So we work on most of the major categories of our life using the same process: personal transformation, interpersonal transformation, and then business transformation. So that's the cycle that's required. And all of you are going to have different needs in each of those different areas. Some of you might have done a lot of work on your own personal transformation. You're very, very clear on who and what you are. And so now you're ready to really embark upon the skill set and the business. Some of you might have already gotten to 1 and 2, and you just say, no, I'm really, really solid with my skill set. I'm really, really happy with that. I just need to work on business. So it's understanding what is the most relevant area that you need to focus on. That's going to give you the greatest return on investment. It's about leveraging which of those dimensions is going to give you in your business or your career the greatest boost at this moment in time. So yeah, Kai, I'll hand it back over to you.
Yeah. Those three transformations are always what we're working on. That's really, I think that's kind of what we talk about when we say passion, is that personal transformation. How do you live? Are you living fully? Are you living on fire? Are you living intensely? Are you living passionately? And that's a consequence of just being connected to the true you. And, that step can't be missed. That's the most fundamental step. Even if you're building a business, that's the first step, because in this work anyway, if you're developing a product that forms, that has a certain function in the world, a technology, a microchip, a slap chopper, those infomercials that makes cutting onions easier and tear-free, then you don't need to have your happiness figured out. If you're doing something that has a certain function in the world. But in terms of sitting down with someone and trying to bring out the best in them, like a coaching profession or therapeutic profession or consulting profession, you do, in order to make a true impact in their life, an improving impact in their life, you do have to have some dimension of connection to your true self. So that's important. And then the second one, purpose, is really related to capability. Like, when I think about purpose, yeah, it's what people do in the world. But let me ask you a question. If you were trying to do something, if you had a project, and you had someone who was highly skilled in the thing that you needed them to do versus someone who had no capability, who would you give the responsibility to get the job done? I would choose to give it to someone who's capable. That's just me. So life gives responsibility to those who are capable. That's how it works. You make yourself capable, life will find a purpose for you. It will find a use for you. It's not something you have to figure out. Just enhance this life. Keep enhancing this life to the point that it becomes useful to life. And it'll put you to work. I never needed to figure out what I had to do. I just became good at stuff. And I found a way to provide that value to someone. And I created a structure that we could exchange value for money. And that was my business. I never had an issue growing that because my capability was the foundation. My value and my service and the impact that I made was there. So if you get that handled, if your skill set becomes competent enough, if you become competent enough, life will send you people. And then the business side is more so about, navigating the relationship. Business is just a relationship. Hopefully it's a collaborative and an empowering relationship for both people. But a lot of us, unfortunately, have learned how to be in relationship in a dependent and a destructive way. So the truth is, we don't really know how to navigate beneficial relationships, mutually beneficial relationships. That's what a coaching relationship should be. It should be a mutually beneficial relationship. So for me, relationship is at the core. Understanding the dynamics of relationship is really what we're talking about when we're talking about business. Obviously, business is in terms of creating value for the marketplace, and et cetera, et cetera. But beyond that, it's just in this world, it's a relationship game. It's knowing how to create the agreements that create empowering and collaborative, co-creative, mutually beneficial relationships. And yeah, of course, there's certain things to understand about where people make decisions from and how to discover what's important and valuable to a person so that you can help them get that, and all sorts of things that we teach in enrollment. But it's all about the relationship. It's all about that connection, that initial conversation is not about me, it's about the other person, doing what's best for the other person. So again, everything, you have to get the mindset right before you can do the thing right. You have to understand who you're being in order to understand what's needed for you to do. I don't know if it's NLP or different psychological things like Tony Robbins, but they always say it's 90% mindset and 10% action. I would say it's 100% understanding of how life really works, and then just doing what's needed, which is not determined by me. It's determined by the situation. The actions are relevant to the situation. They're not the truth. They're just a temporary expression. So that's why a lot of these systems that teach strategy and just teach you what to do, they're missing the point. All right, well, that's pretty much it for me. We're going to be doing a couple more of these, but for those of you who don't know, we are launching the second round of our 6-month coach training program, Project Revolution 2.0, and that's at the end of June. And we'll be going into a lot of this in detail. And a number of people in this room have gone through it. They're going through the next round of the next step of that work. But for those of you who are curious to know more about that, I think we have a website that you can take a look at. But you know, if you feel in resonance in terms of something about this resonates with you and you want to know if it's potentially a good fit for you, book in a call with Chris or myself. Reach out to us. Most of you know us personally, so please reach out to us and just get on a call with us so we can explore what is going on for you and if this program or if this process is something that's relevant or not. And if it is, then we'll figure out how it could be of support, how it could be helpful and useful to you, and then go from there. Sound good? It's pretty simple. All right. Well, thank you guys for everyone who showed up. It's been really fun to sit here and explore and to share and to express what feels true and what we feel would be helpful. And it's been a pleasure for me today to be with you guys.
Likewise, thanks guys. It's been an absolute honor and a privilege. And we'll be sharing again same time next Thursday as well. So if you want to come back again for a deeper conversation, you're welcome to come back and join us. And if you know of anyone else that would resonate with this conversation, that's looking for a deeper understanding of what coaching really should be about, we'd appreciate you sharing this with anyone that you feel like might resonate with what we're sharing. So thanks for joining us. Thank you for your shares. And I look forward to seeing you guys all very soon. Much love.